Heavily armed police on Queen Street West after a barrage of gunfire. Police report that nearly 100 shots were fired. Good afternoon. An unmarked police car was struck by bullets in the incident late last night at Queen and Sudbury.
No officers were injured and nearly 24 arrests have been made. CTV's Janice Golding is on the scene and joins us now live. Janice.
Hi, Raheem. Yes, police are saying that this bears all the hallmarks of a gang-related conflict after a wild shootout that took place behind a Queen Street West recording studio.
I believe right now we're up to close to 100 shots fired.
Deputy Chief Lauren Pogue described the incident as dangerous and volatile, telling reporters that at around 11:20 last night, officers were in the area of Queen and Sudbury on an unrelated investigation when a stolen car pulled up. 3 people exited the vehicle and subsequently opened fire on a recording studio and the people who were gathered outside. Now, police say this brazen act of violence escalated into an exchange of gunfire between 2 groups, during which an unmarked police vehicle with officers inside was struck by bullets. In the ensuing melee, police would arrest 23 people and seize 16 firearms, including 2 assault-style rifles, guns that were located both in and out of the recording studio, and on people who were arrested.
As the suspects attempted to flee the scene in their stolen vehicle, our officers acted swiftly and boxed the vehicle in. 1 suspect was apprehended after a brief foot chase, while 2 others managed to escape and are still being sought by police. During a subsequent search of the area, several firearms were recovered, likely discarded by the fleeing suspects. Officers also secured the recording studio, arresting several individuals inside as well as others that were trying to flee. Additional firearms were recovered from inside the building, the rooftop, and even hidden in garbage bins nearby.
And we heard like bang, but then it kept going. It was like bang, 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 bang. And it was so loud, and I started freaking out.
I wouldn't want to be outside when they're shooting because being a bystander, I might have got shot.
This was a pretty major event and a lot of gunshots. And given that I don't right now know what happened, it's a little terrifying to not know.
Now, police are calling it remarkable that none of the individuals involved, nor police or bystanders, were injured in this incident. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding. Now back to Raheem.
Thank you, Janice. There is a new report today that paints a picture of the dire need for food bank support.
In the past year, there have been nearly 3.5 million visits to food banks in Toronto. CTV's John Musselman is following this story and joins us live with the details. John.
Well, Natalie, as you just mentioned, the numbers are staggering. We're hearing this is a crisis situation at all of Toronto's food banks. We'll show you some video here. A lot of volunteers out here this morning packing boxes with dry goods. Well, that was going on. We heard a news conference this morning detailing some of these numbers. As you mentioned, 3.5 million visits to the food banks in the Toronto area. That's an increase of 270% over last year. Now, food bank officials say this issue here is a lack of affordable housing and people living on the edge. This isn't just, these are people that have post-secondary educations. These are people who are working, but the problem comes down to being able to pay the rent and what's left over. There just isn't enough for groceries, and that's why many of them are turning to food banks. They're calling on governments to work on this issue of affordable housing. Here is what Neil Hetherington had to say this morning at the news conference.
It's heartbreaking that 1/4 of food bank clients are children and youth whose parents are having to make the impossible choice to keep their children fed because of the precarious employment that they have. Let's make government step up and introduce laws that will decrease precarious employment and provide stable, decent incomes to the Canadians that require it.
And we heard from representatives from food banks right across the GTA. We're hearing a similar story here. The demand is through the roof and they need government help from all levels. We'll have much more on this story tonight on CTV News and CTV News at 5 and 6. Reporting live, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, John. Still to come, there's a countdown clock to a possible strike by postal workers in Canada. We'll have the details this half hour.
More news in a moment, but first, here's a live look at the city this afternoon. It sure was feeling cool when the kids were heading out to school this morning. It is warming up a bit now, though. Jessica Smith is here with a look at the current conditions. Jess.
Hi, it is sunny, but it sure ain't warm out there. So if you were up early on this morning, it's still quite breezy. We had that northerly flow to the wind, and there was a chill to the air. The jacket definitely necessary. As we head into the afternoon, it's not really warming up, but the winds will become a little bit lighter, more moderate, so easier to be outside without having the wind doing that 1-2 punch when you walk out the door. We're looking at a northerly wind right now sustained right around 24-25 kilometers an hour. As we head into the evening, into the day tomorrow, they get a little lighter, so it's easier to manage. We're in the single digits to get the day started, and it is going to be fresh as we head throughout that midpoint of our week. We're looking at 6 through the island, the same through Pearson this afternoon, 6. So we are holding on to a very seasonal adjacent forecast. We're a little below where we should be. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast. Right now, it's back over to Raheem and Natalie.
Thanks, Jess. The anticipation to Taylor Swift's Toronto shows is building. There's a new friendship bead sign welcoming concert goers at the Rogers Centre.
T-Swift merchandise is now on sale for fans who want to make sure they are dressed in their best for shows beginning Thursday. CTV's Mike Walker is standing by amid all of this excitement and joins us now live. Mike.
Well, Natalie, Raheem, you can definitely feel the excitement building. All morning, Swifties have been lining up to buy official Taylor Swift merchandise. They're waiting up to an hour and a half in line and ready to spend hundreds of dollars. Now, there are 3 separate merchandise stores set up at gates 1, 5, and 9A here at the Rogers Centre. The lineups are snaking around the stadium. This morning, fans are stocking up on everything from T-shirts to sweaters to posters and, of course, friendship bracelets. There are some exclusive items for sale here, including a blue crew neck sweater that I'm told you can't buy online, only at the concert. Now, to give you an idea of how much money people are spending, a T-shirt goes for $60, a hoodie goes for $110. Many people we spoke with are attending the first of 6 sold-out shows here, and after more than a year of anticipation for the Eras Tour to take over Toronto, they tell us stocking up on all this merch is worth it.
The line is going to be absolutely insane the day of our concert, so we came early to be able to get everything that we wanted and make sure we get the sweaters and the shirts that we actually want. Everything in total was $715 that we got. We have eight items in total.
Is that worth it?
I think it's totally worth it.
I felt like all the emotions are coming to me now that I'm gonna see her. So it was like, yeah. And like getting the blue crew neck, like everyone's been freaking out over it. So it was a really good feeling.
I've never been to any of her concerts, so I'm just excited to see her in person.
What about yourself?
Just like a big part of my childhood, so it'll be good.
Now, the Rogers Centre is anticipating long lineups for these merchandise stores. It's important to note that you can't camp out here. They'll be first in line. The queues start at 9 in the morning, and the merchandise stores will only be open on non-concert dates. That includes today and tomorrow and next Monday through Wednesday. Reporting live from Mike Walker, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mike, standing by with the Swifties. And we have more coverage online on Taylor in Toronto at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
In New York, a judge has paused proceedings in the Donald Trump hush money case. There will be no decision on whether to vacate his conviction for at least a week following a defense request. It wants time to consider how to approach the case in light of Trump's election win. Meanwhile, Trump continues to choose his cabinet ahead of his inauguration in January, and there may be another announcement soon. Sources tell Reuters that Kristi Noem will be nominated for the position of Homeland Security Secretary. She is currently serving her second 4-year term as South Dakota's governor after a convincing re-election win in 2022.
Trump has already revealed other nominees who will be taking on some key roles in this administration, including the man following through on Trump's pledge of mass deportations of illegal immigrants.
And there are reports that Florida Senator Marco Rubio will take on the job of Secretary of State. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbin reports.
I, Donald John Trump.
When Donald Trump takes the oath of office a second time, he plans to carry out the largest mass deportation of illegal immigrants in U.S. history. And Trump loyalist Stephen Miller is back. The architect of Trump's hardline immigration policies, including the Muslim ban, is expected to be named Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy.
The criminal migrants are gone. The gangs are gone. America is for Americans and Americans only.
The man in charge, Tom Homan, named Border Czar, pledging to deport criminals first. The former acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement delivered this warning at the Republican convention.
To the millions of illegal aliens that Joe Biden's releasing our country in violation of federal law, you better start packing now.
And when asked about that controversial policy separating children from migrant parents, could there be a way to avoid that this time?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
As many brace for what's next, Trump's immigration picks do not need congressional approval.
Whether there's going to be that sufficient pushback and will to stop what would be a very cruel exercise in federal policy, and I think ultimately decimate the American economy if it's carried out.
Two more choices. Trump loyalist Elise Stefanik named UN ambassador, and former New York Congressman Lee Zeldin expected to roll back Democratic climate change regulations when he takes over the Environmental Protection Agency.
Joy Melvin, CTV News, Washington.
Leaders around the world are closely watching each and every move by the incoming U.S. president.
Donald Trump has threatened to cut aid to Ukraine, and tensions are escalating in that war. CTV's Heather Wright reports.
Ukraine released this drone footage showing a number of strikes on Russian troops in Kursk. It's Russian territory that was taken by Ukraine this past summer, and one that Russia is aiming to reclaim with tens of thousands of troops, including some from North Korea now assembled along the border. Russia's push comes as both sides exchanged waves of drone attacks. At least 8 people were killed in Ukraine overnight, while Moscow was attacked with 34 drones on Sunday, the biggest drone strike on the Russian capital since the war began. This wave of attacks comes as the Washington Post reported that U.S. President-elect Donald Trump spoke to the Russian president and told him not to escalate the war any further, a conversation the Kremlin has denied. It is completely untrue, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters. It is pure fiction. Trump's team says they do not comment on private calls between the president and other world leaders. The future of U.S. support for Ukraine remains unclear following Trump's re-election. Some believe Russia may be rushing to take back Kursk, with the prospect of a U.S. negotiated truce on the table.
I think there is an opportunity here to end this in some shape or form.
Retired Major General David Fraser believes any future ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine will mean Ukraine gives up territory it has lost.
This is not going to be resolved to the benefit of Ukrainians or the West. This is just a bad end to a bad story, and it will give opportunities for other despots around the world to do something similar.
Trump has said he would be able to end this war before taking office. Kursk would be a major bargaining chip for Ukraine in any ceasefire negotiation if they're able to hang on to it. Heather Wright, CTV News.
In China, 35 people were killed when a man drove his car into a crowd.
43 others were injured in the attack in a southern city last night. It happened as people were exercising at a sports complex. Police detained the 62-year-old driver who is being treated for wounds thought to be self-inflicted. Authorities say he was upset about his divorce settlement. Police set up barricades at the entrance to the complex, barring people from entering. But members of the public left flowers by the square adjacent to the sports center. China's president called for strict punishment of the perpetrator.
Now to Hamilton, where the family of a man shot by police is speaking out. 43-year-old Erickson Cabrera was shot Saturday night and later died. Cabrera was a father of 3 and has been described as a well-known member of the Rwandan Canadian community. His family calling him the kindest soul they'd ever known. Cabrera was shot after Hamilton police were called to an apartment building on Main Street West Saturday night. Police say there were reports that he was carrying a handgun. The SIU says a replica firearm was recovered from the scene. Cabrera's family is calling for justice. We have more coverage online. Head to ctvnewstoronto.ca.
Toronto police have identified 2 suspects in a fatal North York shooting in September.
And they believe the suspects have fled the country. The shooting happened outside a plaza in the area of Jane and Lawrence around 7:30 a.m. on September 30th. A man was located with gunshot wounds and was pronounced dead at the scene. He has since been identified as 42-year-old Anthony McBean. Police now identifying 2 suspects, 35-year-old Ricardo Manuel Bailey and 42-year-old Debbie Jones, both wanted for second-degree murder. The suspects are considered armed and dangerous, and it is believed they may have fled to Jamaica. Anyone with information is asked to contact police. We have some breaking news now on separate strikes by port workers in Montreal and Vancouver.
There's a move today to order the striking workers back on the job. CTV Scott Hurst joins us live with the breaking news. Scott, what's the latest on the labor disputes at the ports in Montreal and Vancouver?
Raheem, this is a significant intervention by the federal government to end twin shutdowns at these ports, the 2 of Canada's busiest ports in British Columbia and Montreal. So what this specifically means for port workers, port operations, and the locked out workers, the federal labor minister just this morning has invoked his authority under the Canada Labor Code, and he's directed the Canada Industrial Relations Board to order the resumption of all operations and functions at the 2 ports on the West Coast and in Montreal, and to help the parties involved by imposing final and binding arbitration. Not ideal for workers looking for a new contract through collective bargaining, but according to the labor minister, it means port operations could resume within a few days. Here's more from federal labor minister Stephen McKinnon on his announcement to intervene to end the work stoppages at ports in British Columbia and Montreal.
Under Section 107 of the Code, I've directed the Canada Industrial Relations Board to order that all operations and duties at the ports resume, and to assist the parties in settling their collective agreements by imposing final and binding arbitration. This will bring the necessary resolutions for both workers and employers. I have also directed the board to extend the terms of the existing collective agreements until new ones are established.
And Raheem, this announcement was made just a short time ago this morning, but there already is significant reaction. We're hearing from federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh as well, blasting the back-to-work attack on these unions, saying it really diminishes the power of the unions and the ability for these workers to get a collective agreement at the bargaining table.
So we've seen these labor disputes happening right now. What sort of impact are they having on the Canadian economy?
Raheem, we heard estimates $1.3 billion was on the line here every day between the 2 ports. These are 2 of Canada's busiest and biggest ports, and that's the value of goods that's estimated to pass through these 2 ports on a daily basis. And Ottawa has always countered, saying that negotiated settlements are the best way forward. But we've seen Ottawa pull this lever before, just this past summer, to end rail stoppages. And so there is a significant amount of money on the line, and business communities, the business community and business groups had been calling on the federal government to do just this, to ensure that the goods that were coming through these ports could then go throughout the rest of Canada, and that this would not disrupt the supply chain. So the business community was quite concerned about the significant impact, not just then on the business community, but the trickle-down effect, Raheem, that this would have on everyday consumers as well, notably as we get closer and closer to the always busy and important holiday shopping season.
Yeah, that's right. Christmas only 6 weeks away, and Black Friday even before that. CTV Scott Hurst reporting for us. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Raheem.
Canadian postal workers could go on strike by the end of the week as contract negotiations near the 1-year mark. The union representing workers at Canada Post have now issued a 72-hour strike notice. It means if an agreement is not reached, workers will be in a legal position to strike as of Friday. The union says while the notice has been given, its National Executive Board has yet to determine when a strike would take place.
Ontario's premier is suggesting a possible reworking of the North American Free Trade Agreement that excludes one of the countries. Doug Ford says Mexico has become a back door for Chinese cars, auto parts, and other products into Canada and the U.S. In Barrie this morning, he was asked why he is wading into international trade, which is Ottawa's responsibility.
It was the federal government that sent me down to negotiate with Bob Lighthizer, and since we're the engine of Canada and 95% of all the jobs that were created just last month were here in Ontario, We'd be the third largest trading partner in the world to the United States if we were a standalone country, which I never recommend. We do $500 billion a year in two-way trade. We're the #1 export destination to 17 states and #2 to 11 other states. So do we have a stake in this? 1,000%.
Ford says allowing an influx of Chinese products puts the livelihoods of Canadian and American workers at risk and undermines communities, as well as harming our shared economic success. He says Mexico should at least match Canadian and U.S. tariffs on Chinese imports.
Well, we're feeling like fall for almost the first time during the fall season as we make our way throughout our day today. Lots of sunshine, but it is fresh. We're sitting just below seasonal as we make our way throughout the afternoon. We'll sit at 6. We should be at 8. We're not far off that seasonal norm, but every degree counts this time of year. Winds change direction, but it doesn't get any warmer. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast. We'll look ahead to the forecast for the first day of the many Taylor Swift shows here in the city of Toronto. That's all coming up after the break.
Well, don't worry, I'm not going to sing It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas, but it kind of is at Nathan Phillips Square. A massive white spruce tree from Bancroft, Ontario has arrived. It's going to be decorated with thousands of lights and more than 500 ornaments in time for the tree lighting ceremony on the opening night of the city's Cavalcade of Lights on November 30th. After the holidays, the tree will be recycled into mulch to be used in gardens across the city. Is it too early to start doing the 6-week countdown?
Never!
You count down to Taylor Swift and then you count down to Santa.
Okay, that's the happy medium.
First Swift, then Santa.
Yeah.
That's how it goes now.
They can only come to town one at a time.
You know what I mean? It is.
Are they the same person?
Oh my gosh.
Pokeroo, just missed her.
Mind blown. But it is one of those things where it has not felt like fall. So it's really weird to kind of starting to be.
Of course.
We all know that they put out the Halloween stuff and the Christmas stuff almost at the exact same time. But it feels so strange that we are suddenly all now feeling like fall. And literally
the seasonal
one day.
temperatures came
You
like
know
that.
what I mean? This time last week we were in the 20s. So we are kind of settling into a much more seasonal forecast as we make our way in towards what is going to be a busy week ahead. The good news is, as we head in towards our Thursday, the first day of the Taylor Swift mania, it is going to be relatively seasonal, but we're keeping a close eye on some rain. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers, you don't pay unless they win. Now, lots of sunshine to start the day. It wasn't warm sunshine, but it was sunshine nonetheless. And the winds were a little breezy, but they are now starting to moderate ever so slightly, making for a beautiful day ahead. It has not felt seasonal in a while, so this does feel like quite a shock in comparison to the 20 degrees we were seeing around this time last week, but we are getting closer to where we should be for this time of year. Temperature-wise, as we head throughout the day today, we will actually be a little shy of seasonal. Right now, we're sitting at 6, 8 through Windsor, 4 in Ottawa. Those negative temperatures are creeping up through northern Ontario as we get through this kind of almost midpoint of the month of November. We are pretty much at our high for today. We should be around 8 for this time of year. Almost everybody kind of just at or below their seasonal average. And with a lighter northerly wind today, we're looking at it feeling pretty much right on par for where we should be. Into this evening, it's going to be a little fresh. That -2 feeling closer to -5, -6 when you factor in the wind chill. We had a humidex this time last week, and we have a wind chill today. So it is a bit of a trip for the mind. But we are holding on to much cooler lows as we head through the overnight, and it's going to feel a lot more like Christmas as we head into the next couple of days. We are holding on to sunshine thanks to a couple areas of high pressure moving their way in. But we're watching very closely this series of lows that is likely to bring rain as we head in towards Thursday, but the timing of it is a little bit iffy. So we'll get through the rest of our day today with brilliant sunshine out there. There's not much to write home about with this one. As we head into the evening, again, it is going to be cool, but the winds are significantly lighter. They become southeasterly into the day tomorrow. There's a little bit of a warm up, and we stay sunny right throughout the day until about 5 o'clock. The cloud cover comes in first with this system, so it is a little bit of a cloudier night, but that helps us hold on to some of our warmth. If you think about warming up leftovers, you put the lid on it, it kind of traps some of that warmth in there. Eventually, when we lift the lid, it will get a little cooler once again. The rain, though, we're watching that on Thursday. Not all the models are agreeing, so what that means is that it is a very unstable system. So something is coming. How close it's going to get, that's what we have to watch for. The rain kind of creeps its way in just outside of the downtown core. So the bulk of the rain right now looks like it's stopping at a Etobicoke for the most part. It will eventually creep its way across the city, but that's likely later in the evening. But we're watching the timing of all this because the rain is there. It just depends on how close it is going to get. As we head in towards about 8 o'clock again, it's just holding off, so it might just move in time for a lot of the folks heading out after the first day of the 6 Taylor Swift shows we have here in the city. Temperature-wise, we are holding on just below seasonal as we head throughout the day today. We get to a pretty seasonal point throughout the day tomorrow, and then we warm up just a little as we head in towards Thursday. Again, the timing of the shower activity on Thursday is a little bit mixed right now. There is rain in the area, but we just don't know how close it's going to get to us. So we'll watch that over the next kind of 24 hours or so. As we head in towards Friday, the lingering cloud cover will be there in the morning. It pushes out. And then we honestly have a really beautiful weekend ahead of us. So for the rest of the shows, at least for the first couple of days, it's looking pretty nice. And looking ahead towards Monday next week, again, we're holding on just above seasonal. So it is in the range of where we should be for this time of year. Natalie, I'll send things back over to you.
Okay, thanks, Jess.
Thanks.
Now to a fascinating story about an alien-like code captured by monitoring signals from space. In May 2023, the message from somewhere near Mars reached the Earth. And you might be surprised to learn what researchers have now found. For more on this, we are joined by CTV Science and Technology specialist Dan Riskin. Dan, thank you for joining us. Before we get too carried away here, this isn't actually a message from aliens, right?
Oh, I wish it was. I wish it was, but it's not. I mean, probably it's a good thing it's not because we don't know what their intentions are. This is really a message from space, but it's a message we sent from space. So there's a satellite going around Mars called the ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter. It's a European Space Agency spacecraft, and it's doing its job. But last year in May, for fun and for art and for humanity, it sent a very strange signal toward the Earth to simulate what it might look like if a strange signal hit the Earth coming from somewhere else. And it was totally encrypted. And so what you're seeing there is sort of the decrypted. It took a year for people. I mean, they made this a puzzle for everyone to try to solve. And believe it or not, this is the solution to the puzzle. So it's very, very complicated to understand exactly what it is, but it was designed as a way of just sort of engaging people and talking about what it means to get a signal from space and how we would respond to that.
I know you say for fun, for art, for humanity, but why would the European Space Agency do this? Is there a broader purpose behind sending this encoded message?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few different reasons. I mean, one is to make space fun and to make people feel involved. I mean, what could be more fun than getting a signal and trying to decipher it? But the other piece is really just testing sort of all the infrastructure that's in place to take signals that do come from space. I mean, space makes noise. It sends radio signals towards the Earth all the time, and we're listening to them constantly. There's something called the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, SETI, that has been going for decades. I mean, it was the basis of the movie Contact, which was really an extrapolation of what might happen if a signal were to come back and be picked up. But people have been listening this whole time. And so this signal was sent to sort of mimic what those signals might look like so that we could start to get our feet under us and say, okay, how would we handle this kind of message? What kinds of analyses would we do to try to decipher the message? How would we share the message? And then the other piece is it's also really compelling art. Great art gets people talking. And this was made by an artist in residence at SETI. So this art has people talking, and I think that's worthwhile as well.
Okay, so who deciphered this, and was this a good approximation of what would actually happen if we got a real signal?
Yeah, well, what's really neat is this was solved by a couple of, I mean, I say amateurs, but they're pretty good with computers. Ken Chaffin and his adult daughter, Kelly Chaffin, took this on. They spent a year writing computer code trying to hack this message. And what they found is that those little white dots actually, each one of them symbolizes a different amino acid that you can find, the building blocks of proteins here on Earth, and sort of a holy grail of what we would look for in space as evidence of life. And so you could see the artwork behind it. But, for them, they knew, of course, the whole time that this wasn't really from aliens, that this was a puzzle set out by an artist. But I think the fact that it was solved by normal humans and not one of the big space agencies really speaks to the power of not just humanity, but also our time, where everything is shared on social media, everything is sort of democratized. And when a great puzzle comes from outer space and we do get the real thing, maybe it'll just be somebody smart on their computer, in a coffee shop who's able to decipher what that message means.
Very cool. CTV Science and Technology specialist Dan Riskin. Thanks as always, Dan.
Thank you, Natalie.
Still to come, we'll meet a woman whose heart was broken and life savings stolen in a romance scam. That story when we return.
The leader of the provincial Liberals promised today to cut taxes if she is elected premier.
Doug Ford thinks a one-time $200 check makes up for the cost of living crisis that he created. Well, I disagree. So today I'm here to announce that when I'm premier, I'm going to stop the giveaways to Doug's friends and cut your taxes instead. As premier, I'll immediately do two things to put more money back into your pockets. First, I'll cut your income taxes. And then I'll get rid of the sales tax on home heating and hydro bills.
Bonnie Crombie says it would be the largest tax relief this province has seen in more than a decade. She says in total, the cuts would save a family just over $1,100 a year. Romance scams remain a huge problem for many Canadians, with victims losing more than $52 million to criminals last year alone.
Scammers search for unsuspecting people on social media sites like Facebook, trying to start friendships before asking for money. CTV's Pat Foran reports.
A woman we'll call Anne says she was on Facebook when a man contacted her saying he wanted to strike up a friendship.
He just said he was looking for a friend, and I've seen a very nice person, and he was always telling me, I sound genuine, and he would really like to be my friend. He would come to Canada and visit me.
Anne asked us not to identify her as she's embarrassed after losing her life savings. Over the course of a year, the man said he needed to borrow money, but that he'd pay it back because he was working in Texas and expecting a large check.
He was going to get $5.6 million, and it was a 6-month contract, so if I would help him.
At first, Anne refused to send the money, but he sent her roses and eventually talked her into it. Over time, she became concerned when she realized she had given a man she had never met all her money.
Over a space of like 1 year, he borrowed all my savings, over $200,000.
In the end, Anne was scammed out of $230,000.
He fell in love with me when he seen my picture.
Last month, we had a similar story of a romance scam. Elaine Harnham met a man on Facebook and ended up being scammed out of $20,000.
He seemed so nice, and he wanted to come here to meet me.
Cybersecurity experts say scammers are searching for lonely people online. They start friendships, claim they need money they promise to pay back, and have excuses why they can't meet in person. Once victims send money, it's almost impossible to retrieve it. Anne says she's humiliated. She gave her life savings to a complete stranger.
I'm very hurt, and I could have been doing so much with my money, but it's gone.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
The investigation continues into how a BC teenager was exposed to bird flu.
It was detected over the weekend and is believed to be Canada's first case. CTV's Alison Bamford explains.
The source of infection unknown at the moment, as a teenager in BC's Children's Hospital is treated for a presumptive case of H5N1, the first in the country.
One of the things that I think is a relatively large area of uncertainty for us right now is how severe this virus is in young people.
The case comes as BC sees a surge in poultry infections, at least 22 recorded on farms since the start of October. South of the border, the U.S. has confirmed 46 human cases of H5 bird flu this year. The source of exposure, poultry or dairy cattle in all cases. Those symptoms ranging from cough, fatigue, and shortness of breath to redness and swelling in the eyes.
The vast majority of those cases have been on the milder end of the spectrum.
But there's concern. The virus has pandemic potential, doctors say, if it starts spreading between humans.
We know that this is an infection that has potentially lethal consequences. It's known to be a very serious infection.
Avian influenza in humans has been tracked for the last 20 years, with fatality rates higher than 50%. But doctors say that should be interpreted with caution.
we always overestimate mortality because we don't do a good job at detecting less severe cases.
So far, there's no evidence of person-to-person transmission in any of the H5N1 cases globally. Health officials say the risk to the general public remains low, but we could see more cases, at least among birds, as we enter migration season. Allison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Still to come, Shopify is leading the charge today as stocks advance on the Canadian stock market. We'll have the details in business after the break.
Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
A surge in online retail giant Shopify lifted Canadian stocks to a record high this morning.
Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg brings us the latest in business.
Hello there. Here are your business headlines. Toronto's benchmark stock index jumped to a new high above 24,900 this morning, powered by a 26% surge in Shopify shares. The provider of services to online merchants around the world posted sales that beat estimates. The company has been attracting larger customers, such as Toys R Us, after years of mostly targeting mom-and-pop businesses. The federal government has moved to end labor disruption at Canada's largest ports, as it did with railways in August, to avoid economic disruption. The Labour Minister, Stephen McKinnon, is forcing the matter to the Canada Industrial Relations Board, which can order the sides in BC and Montreal to go back to work and enter into arbitration. And finally, Bloomberg says retailers plagued by shoplifters are looking at weaving radio-emitting threads into clothing, turning the garments themselves into anti-theft devices. Inditex of Spain, owner of Zara, is exploring an anti-theft alarm product so thin it's imperceptible to the naked eye. A British criminology professor says, quote, in some stores, particularly high-end and designer shops, retailers don't want to give an impression that crime is an issue. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg.
Genetic testing firm 23andMe is cutting about 40% of its workforce, about 200 employees. The company is also discontinuing further development of all of its therapies as part of what it calls a restructuring program. 23andMe says it is evaluating alternatives that include licensing agreements and asset sales for its therapies in development. The firm expects annualized cost savings of more than $35 million following its decision.
The Hockey Hall of Fame induction ceremony was held in town last night. Boston-born Jeremy Roenick enters the Hall after recording more than 1,200 points in 1,363 regular season games. The 54-year-old Roenick broke into the league with Chicago. He's joined by defenseman Shea Weber, who helped drag the underdog Canadians to the Stanley Cup final in 2021 before his career was cut short by injuries. Center Pavel Datsyuk won Stanley Cups with Detroit in 2002 and 2008. He was also inducted, as were Natalie Darwitz and Chrissy Wendell, multi-medalists who competed for the U.S. at the Worlds and the Olympics. David Poyle and Colin Campbell enter the halls in the Builders category.
The Leafs will go for their fourth straight win tonight against the Senators. Toronto is coming off a 4-1 win against the Habs on Saturday. Mitch Marner scored a shorthanded goal and added an assist to extend his point streak to 8 games. The Leafs will be without Max Pacioretty for the next several games after the 35-year-old winger was placed on injured reserve with a lower body injury. Austin Matthews did not practice yesterday and is expected to miss his 4th straight game tonight. Puck drop at Scotiabank Arena is set for 7 o'clock.
The Toronto Argonauts are headed to the Grey Cup after a big win on the weekend, where they will face a familiar foe.
Toronto, I'll see you in BC, baby.
For the second time in 3 years, the Toronto Argonauts are in the Grey Cup. Although the game will be played on the West Coast, the Boatmen are going to have plenty of hometown support in Vancouver.
I have no intentions of missing a Grey Cup anytime in the near future.
David Brown has been to 44 consecutive Argos games, home and away, including last weekend in Montreal. That's him in the cowboy hat and shades.
A good friend of mine, Adam, kind of gave me the hashtag Ginger Argo, obviously because I'm a redhead. I do kind of exert myself to the forefront, maybe more than I should, but it's just become such a big passion.
Over the weekend, though, the Argos almost saw their season come to a sudden end during the East Final. Their quarterback, Chad Kelly, needed to be stretchered off the field after breaking his ankle.
Hang in there, brother. I love you, Chad. Let's keep fighting, guys, okay?
But the Double Blue persevered. Veteran Nick Arbuckle, who thought his professional football career was over earlier this year, stepped up and will be the team's starting QB in the Grey Cup.
I didn't have a team. I was just on a couch training some quarterbacks over there in Ottawa, trying to make some kids better and keep myself ready.
The league's coveted trophy arrived in British Columbia over the weekend, traveling by air, sea, and land, escorted by members of the Canadian Armed Forces. Now the only team in the Argos' way of lifting it for the 19th time in franchise history are the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
The Winnipeg Blue Bombers are as talented, if not more talented, than the Argos. As much as there's going to be a lot of attention on Nick Arbuckle and certainly how the team will have to adjust with him, there are so many weapons on the Argos that at a moment's notice, they can break a team very, very quickly.
This is the 5th straight Grey Cup appearance for the Bombers, and it's also a 2022 rematch when the Argos beat them. And if you ask Brown, history will repeat itself.
We're going to take it. I think our group wants it more.
A bold prediction. Canadians will watch to see if it plays out on Sunday.
There's some high-profile baby news from Hollywood. Megan Fox and Machine Gun Kelly are growing their family. Fox announced her pregnancy in a social media post yesterday. She appeared in a photo covered in black ink while holding her baby bump and another of a pregnancy test that said yes. The couple announced their engagement in 2022. Fox has 3 sons from another marriage. Machine Gun Kelly has a daughter from a previous relationship.
Beyonce and her expansive cultural legacy will be the subject of a new course next year at Yale University. The class is titled Beyonce Makes History: Black Radical Tradition, Culture, Theory, and Politics Through Music. The one-credit course will focus on the period from Beyonce's 2013 self-titled album through this year's genre-defying Cowboy Carter. The professor of the course says she plans to use the performer's wide-ranging repertoire as a portal for students to learn about Black intellectuals from the time of Frederick Douglass up to the present.
A Canadian rocker is among the nominees for the 2025 class at the Songwriters Hall of Fame.
What it all comes down to is that everything's gonna be fine, fine, fine.
Alanis Morissette joins an eclectic group of rap, rock, hip-hop, and pop pioneers. The Hall of Fame was established to honor those creating popular music. A songwriter with a notable catalog qualifies for induction 20 years after the first commercial release of a song. Other nominees this year include Eminem, Boy George, George Clinton, Sheryl Crow, the Doobie Brothers, and NWA.
Coming up, we go behind the scenes to meet the kids making the Mervish production of Lion King.
Disney's The Lion King musical has returned to the stage in Toronto, and you can't have a king without a cub.
Some of the youngest members of the cast were ready to celebrate after the curtain came down on opening night Sunday. CTV's Andrea Case reports.
Smiles all around for some of the youngest stars of Disney's The Lion King. The roles of young Simba and Nala are shared by 6 young actors, but on opening night, the honor was given to Ira Nabong and Nandia Luars.
It was very special. Like, a lot of people that I know came to watch me.
It was absolutely amazing. There were so many people, and hearing the audience react is just, it's like bliss.
3, 2, 1. With a number of acting roles already on their resumes, the kids are in it for the long haul.
Of course.
Definitely.
Like, oh, it's really fun performing with everyone because everyone's so fun to be around, and you make like a lot of connections with everyone. Having the audience just look at us just perform and like seeing all our friendships that we've made is like just very cool.
They are fearless after performing to a full house on opening night and can't wait to get back on stage.
The best thing about being an actor is you get to be so many different people and you get to portray so many different stories and make the audience laugh, smile, cry, just portraying emotion, I guess.
Acting brings such joy to me, just getting to express yourself is very fun.
Disney's The Lion King is on stage now at the Princess of Wales Theatre. Andrea Case, CTV News.
I love how poised those kids are. Those aren't one-word yes/no answers. That was impressive.
I want that kind of stage presence.
Right, same. Watching that being like taking notes. Okay,
Yeah.
you make eye contact. But such a great show, and I feel like we're getting into the time of year where you're getting into the festive season. We're watching holiday shows. The Lion King is back. It's a great production if you haven't seen it, and we're holding on to actual fall weather for the first time in what feels like since the fall season began. Temperature-wise, obviously, we are sitting a little below seasonal today. That wind is a little bit fresh, but we have the sunshine returning at least for a couple of days. All eyes on the sky, though, as we head into Thursday, a big day. I'm not really sure why. I'm just kidding. It's a Taylor Swift concert, the first one of many. So we're watching that forecast very closely. Today, we're holding on to beautiful sunshine, high pressure, nice and steady out there, a nice stable air mass. We're sitting at 6 right now here in the 6. We're at 8 through Windsor, 4 in Ottawa, 4 as well through Barrie and up through Bancroft too. So yes, it is cooler, but this is just where we should be. We haven't seen seasonal weather almost the entire start of the fall season. Heading into the day tomorrow, more sunshine to start the day, a little cloud cover in the afternoon. Looking ahead to Thursday, we are looking at the likelihood of rain making its way into southern Ontario. How close it gets to the downtown core, we will wait and see. But right now, it's looking like it's holding off at least for the first half of the day for all of the Tay-Tay-related festivities taking place here in the city of Toronto. As we make our way in towards the end of the week, we're sitting just above seasonal, and it is comfortable, really, as we settle into the middle of November.
Thanks, Jess. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and all of us here at CTV News, thank you for watching. I'm Natalie Johnson.
And I'm Rahim Ladani. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6.